Hello students, so by the end of today's tutorial, this is what you will be able to do. So your character will start, if you fell on the spike, you go back to the starting point, and then if you pass the spike, you can get to this, where it's going to take you from one side to the other, and then you have a trampoline that will make you jump up. Then the ground will fall and you get to the final door, you enter the door, you move to the next level. Alright, how did we do all that? I will walk you through it. It's actually maybe the shortest lesson we had so far, so let's start. Alright, this is where we left last time. We have our player with the enemy that we can shoot and everything is working fantastic. Alright. The first thing we're gonna do is we are going to set the spikes on the ground that could actually harm you. So we will create an empty object and I will call it spikes. And then inside this empty object, I'm going to create a diamond. I mean, you can use triangle if you see it, but if you don't see it, just use the isometric diamonds. And actually, I shouldn't move it far. So let's make sure we label this with something so we can see it. And yeah, that's need to be there. Actually, let's just do this. Let's move this whole thing. Okay. So for the diamond, we are going to make it a little bit pointier, maybe thinner. This is just housekeeping stuff, you don't have to do it. And then I will copy the ground, Control D, and I will take the new ground and move it down here, probably shrink it a little bit just to make it looks more professional. And then I will move the diamond up a little bit high, and then what I'm gonna do is I will select the diamond and then just make copies after copies by pressing Control D, and then just putting them next to each other. And there you go. We have a trap. And then I can select all the diamonds and go to Add Components by holding Shift to select them all, and then Add Polygon Collider, and that will give them all a collider. As you can see, if I went here, you can see this green line, that's the collider, that's perfect. And then I will also take the ground and put it in with the spikes, just so everything is together, and I will change the layer order to 1, so the ground go in front of the spikes, and it makes it look more like an actual trap. And then since all of them are inside spike, I can just move them all together at once. And this will help you to keep everything organized, because this area will be very populated. You can hit Control S to save, and then I'm just gonna drag this a little bit to the left to make it a little challenging for the player. Alright, so next step, that we have the spikes and everything here is ready. So what we are going to do is we are gonna write a code for the spikes. So the code will be called respawn, because we will use it for multiple purposes. So I'm gonna call it respawn. Alright, so it's gonna take a minute to load. Alright, so in the respawn code, everything we are going to need to write is going to be, it's a very, very simple code, probably the second simplest code we're gonna do today. Public transform. So transform is another variable that we can use. And transform basically tells you the position of the object. Instead of doing game object, you can do transform and you can save yourself time. And that's literally everything we will need up there. We don't need those two. If you're not comfortable, don't delete them. You can keep them. If you are comfortable, you can delete them. So you will have the public class and that. And then we will add a collision check. So void on collision, enter 2D, and then as we always do, collision 2D, and then I'll put other, open brackets. All right, so in here we will say if our player basically, so other dot game object dot compare tag, if the object that has the tag player touched the spikes, I want you to move the player game object dot transform dot position equal to the spawn dot position. Actually, I made one mistake. This is, instead of it being player, make it respawn. So what we are going to do, instead of giving those spike the command to send the player back, we're gonna give the player the command to send themselves back if they touch the spike, and that will make more sense and it will make it much easier for us to deal with it. So if we touch something with a tag called respawn, we get sent back home. Save it and go to the game. So what we're going to do next is we are going to hold all the diamonds and we will change their tag to respawn. Respawn is an already existing tag in Unity, so you don't have to make it. And I'm just making sure I spelled it correctly. Let's see, RESPAWN. Yep, that is correct. And now the second part is to set a spawn position so the player can go to it. So to do that, we are just gonna create a new empty object and we will call it spawn. And I will give it a tag, one of those big ones. The reason I'm giving it one of these big ones, so the name is visible. So then I will take it, I'll put it here. I want, every time I die, I want my player to go back there. And then I will take my player and I will give it the respawn code. So as you can see, respawn code, and it asks you about the spawn. You can just grab the spawn and put it there. So now if we did it right, as soon as we touch the diamond, our player should automatically be moved back here. For some reason it disappeared, and I think to fix that we just need to set it back. Okay, I know why. So if you had something like this happening, the reason is because your spawn is behind your camera. As you can see here, it marked as -9. Just change it to 0 and that will fix it for you. Now our player will not be behind the camera. Yep, and everything is working. Okay, great. So that part is done. We have the spawn functioning. So and another thing we can do is we can just create an empty object and call it death, and then add a component, and let's use the edge collider and drag it down, for example down here, and then just stretch it as far as you can this way and then this way. And what this does, and actually we need to give it the tag, respawn. And what this does is, if you accidentally fell off your platform, let's say I jumped here and I accidentally fell off my platform here, as soon as you touch it, it's gonna return you back to the spawn, so you don't keep falling forever. So this is a good like safety net to have underneath your level, if your level doesn't have a bottom. Alright, so we have the respawn code done and complete. We are going to do one more thing to that, which is we are going to our player movement script and we will set a spawn in it. And the reason we're doing this is, so whenever my player start the level, I always want him to go to the spawn, not just start in a random position. So I will do a public float, actually no, a public transform again, and I will call it spawn, and then at the void start in my player code I will say transform dot position equal to spawn dot position, and that just means as soon as the game starts I want my player to go to the spawn, and then I can open the game, go to my player. As you can see down here in the player movement, we have spawn now. I can just go ahead, drag spawn and add it there. So for example, if I left my player here, every time I start, I will always start at the spawn point. I won't start where I set my player. Alright, that's perfect. We finished the spawn. Now, let's do some fun stuff, like something that moves left and right, or up and down, or diagonally to carry our player. Basically, what can we call that? A moving ground? Okay. So let's create one. So I will start by making a copy of this ground here, and then making it shorter. I guess that's short enough, and I will place it here. And then let's say I want and make another copy, and I want it to take me all the way to here because it's a far distance. I can't jump. So this will be going this way. Actually, let's make it a little bit more challenging. Let's make it here. So this will be taking us up and down, up and down. All right, so that's the final ground. So for this one, I'm going to create an empty object and call it, what do we call it? Moving ground, moving ground. And then this empty object will take this moving platform. I'm going to rename it to platform. I'm just naming them because we will have a lot of things and it will be much easier for us to follow if we have a name for everything. Let's just delete that. No, it's still not. Okay, what if we did this? No. Okay, so we have our moving platform. And inside it, also we will create a new empty and we will call it the start point. And I'm going to drag the start point down here where I want. I'm going to try to make it as center as possible. And then we will create another empty and we will call it end point or end. And this one will go here. Let's put it about here. And make sure you give them some color from the top left. And the reason we do that so we can physically see them. Because if you didn't, you won't be able to see them and then you won't know where they are. Because they will be like just like this without anything in them. This probably need to go a little bit more like this. And this like that. So basically what happened is my platform will be moving from this point to this point. So no matter where I put those points, it will always follow them. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we are going to write the code for it. So let's create a new C# code. I'm gonna call it moving ground. Again, remember you can't spell it with spaces, but you can spell it differently. So we need couple things. The first thing we need is the start point. So public transform, and then we will say start, and then public transform, and we will call it end. That's for the end point. And then we need to figure out the speed, how fast it's going to move. So public float speed. And then we need to do I think that's all we need to do. Actually, we need to do one more. This one, it will be private transform, and we will call it travel, and we will see why this is important. We put it private because we don't care about it being visible outside for people, because this is just a processing thing. So at the beginning of the game, travel just basically mean destination. Let's name it destination so it makes more sense. Destination. Probably spelled it wrong. So destination will equal to end. That's true because we're always trying to go from the starting point to the end point. All right, so now we are going to add some conditions to this. So so we will use something called distance, vector2.distance. What this does, it checks the distance between your player, which is transformed at position. This means actually not the player, the platform transformed at position, just refers to the platform, and another point. And in our case, we will check the distance to the end position. So basically, I want to see how far my platform is from the end position. So I will say, if the distance between the platform to the end position is smaller than 0.1, I'm not going to put it as a 0 just for a safety, then I want the destination to equal start. What that means is if my platform is really close to the end position, almost at the end position, I want my new destination to become the start. Else if, this means, this is another condition, we will again use the same thing, vector2.distance, and then we will do if my start dot position, so if my start point and my platform point, so travel the position or transform dot position, is smaller than 0.1, which means if my platform is really close to my start point, then I want my new destination to equal end, which means, hey, if you got really close to the starting point, I want you to go to the end. And then now we will ask it to move, so we will tell the platform to move, so we'll do transform.position equal vector, let's do vector2 dot move toward. Move toward is just a code that makes the object moves. Transform dot position, this is where do you want it to move from? We want it to move from its current location to the destination position. Destination.position. And then how fast do you want it to move? We want it to move speed multiplied by time dot delta time. You all remember time dot delta time from last lesson. It's just to make it not jump the frame rate if the device was not as fast as the device you're making the game in. So this basically is saying I want the platform position to go to the destination position. So if the platform is at the end, the destination position will be start. If the platform is at the start, the destination position will be end. And that's the whole thing for the moving platform. So now we are going to go back to the game. So the platform already have a collider, which we need, otherwise you won't be able to stand on. We will drag it and then, oh no, that's the wrong one. We will drag the moving ground. And then start, we will put it at the start, and end, we will put it at the end. And let's put the speed as 3 for now. And let's test it. So, okay, so if I jumped on it, see, my player is sliding off. So in real life, you're not sliding off a platform you're standing on, right? So we need to fix that. How can we fix that? It's a pretty simple fix. The first thing is we need to give it a new tag. Instead of calling it ground, we need to call it something else. So I will create a new tag for the platform and I will call it moving ground. Make sure you remember how to spell it, and then I will go to it and I will name it moving ground. All right, perfect. Next, I'm gonna go to my player movement script, the one where my player movement, and I will go to the collision part and I will write another if statement. I will say if other dot game object dot compare tag is moving ground, then I want to become a kid or a child to that to that platform basically. So if I touch the platform, I want to become a child to the platform, so I move with the platform. So how can we do that? It's pretty simple. Sorry, I had to. Yeah. All right, so it's very simple, and it just basically we're gonna say transform dot parent. So we're telling it your parents are going to be other dot transform. Other in this case refers to the moving ground. So basically we're telling our player, hey, your parents now is the platform. And then after we decide who is the parent of the platform, what we need to do is, hey, as soon as I'm not touching the platform, I want to stop being a child of the platform, because if I didn't, I will just be stuck to it forever. I won't be able to leave it no matter what. So I'm sorry about my dogs in the background. So we need to start a new void. We will write void on collision. This time instead of enter, we are gonna do exit. So this means when I'm not touching the collision anymore, and we will use the same thing, collision 2D, and then we will write other for the placeholder, and this time we will say transform parent equal to null. Null just mean nothing, which simply mean, hey, you don't have a parent in the game, or you don't have a parent object in the game when you are not on your platform. So let's test it and see what happens. So now I'm on it, I'm moving with it, and as soon, oh, see, there is another issue. I cannot jump while I'm on it because it's not ground right now, it's moving ground. So let's fix that by just copying is jumping false and putting it down here. So now I will be able to jump just as normal as I would normally. So what I'm gonna do is to save myself some time. I will go to the scene, I will go to my player, drag it, put it up there. Okay, perfect. And then now I can jump, as you can see. Yeah, they squish me. You can fix those squishing situation, but I'm just gonna keep it like this for now because it's funny. All right, so we finished the platform. Now let's make a trampoline. Let's make a copy of this. Let's say we have a long wall up here that we can't really climb, and we need a trampoline to climb. So I'm gonna put the wall up here. So let's make a trampoline. The first thing I'm gonna do is I will create an empty object and call it Tramp. And then inside Tramp, I will make, actually not an empty object, I will make a sprite, a square, and I will make it long and probably very thin, like this thin. And I'll change the color maybe to gold. I think gold looks good, yeah. And then I will make another square. That was an empty object. Create square, and this one is going to be a little bit shorter than that, but also thin. And then it will also be gold. I did it 2 different shades to make it distinguish. And that's my trampoline, basically. Okay, so I have my trampoline. I'll put it down here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add collider to both boxes, box collider, and that will come handy in a minute. Alright, so that's my trampoline. Right now, if I brought my player on it, it will do nothing because we didn't give it any code, but that's what we are gonna do next. So since it's a trampoline, we're gonna create a code and we will name it bounce. So bounce, or actually bouncing, yeah. So this will be our trampoline code. The trampoline is also very simple. So all you will need is public float, and then we will want the bounce power. So how high can I bounce? And then we don't need those two. Again, if you feel comfortable, you can delete them. If you don't, you don't have to delete them. And then, so when do we want to jump is when we collide with the trampoline. So we'll say on collision, enter collision 2D, and we will say other for the placeholder. So in this situation, we will say if other dot game object dot compare tag is player. So if the player touched the trampoline, basically, we want to bounce up. So other dot game object dot get component rigid body. So we want to affect the physics of the player if they touch the trampoline. Add force. We want to add a force to it. Vector 2 up, because it's a trampoline, it goes up and down, right? So up, and then we want to multiply that by the bounce, so that will give you how high it will go. And then we want to add a force mode 2D, and we want it to be impulse. That means it will just happen all of a sudden. Just like a trampoline, when you jump, it pushes you back up. If you didn't put a force mode, it won't work as well. And then don't forget your semicolon, and we're done with the trampoline code. Very simple, straightforward code. All right, now we will go back to the game. I will go to the trampoline up here, and I will add a edge collider. The reason I'm doing an edge collider is because I don't want to be able to jump if I touch the side of the trampoline. I only want to be able to jump if I touch the top of the trampoline. So an edge collider, I picked the wrong one. An edge collider is the best one because it's just a line. So as you can see, this is my line for the edge collider. So what I can do is I can offset it Y and move it up until it's above, like tiny bit above the trampoline, maybe even less than that, like maybe like this, or even like this. No, actually like this would be better. You want it a tiny bit above the trampoline, and then you can go to the points and change it to almost touching the edge, not quite touching the edge, almost. 1.8 I think is a good number, and then we will go down here and we will do 1.8 as well. See, it's almost touching the edge. The reason we don't want it to touch the edge because we don't want the player to be at the edge and be able to jump. We want to kind of mimic our real trampoline. And then in Trump we will add the bouncing. And then let's start with the bouncing power of 10. Alright, let's start the game and see what happens. Again, I'm just gonna drag my player to the end just to make it easier for myself. Let's just drag him here. Alright, and then if I touch the trampoline from the side, oh, yeah, my gun touched the trampoline, so it automatically made me jump. We might have to make it a little bit different. So basically, if I jumped on the trampoline, I'm gonna go up high. I can't make it up there without the trampoline. Only with the trampoline I can make it up there. Yeah, so we made the trampoline. The last trick I'm gonna show you is when you are doing a ground that all of a sudden falls on you. And I'm just showing you all those different things just to give you more options to be able to be creative, create puzzles and other things. So let's say this is the ground, and it will be like a tricky ground where people will think it's collapsing and they will try to jump, and then when they jump they actually lose, and if they didn't jump they win. So we're gonna make it a small ground. Actually, let's make it even smaller. Just like that, okay. All right, and then what happened is we're gonna add a code called falling ground. So create, now called falling ground. All right, so in the falling ground, we want to have an end position. We want a location where the ground will go to. Public transform end, and we can do public float speed, and that's how fast the ground will fall. And then we can do a private bool. This is to falls. That's basically to check if the ground is, did it fall or did it not fall yet? So, and then we don't need a start. So we want it to fall when the player touches it. So we are gonna add a collision. So void on collision, enter. See, we have been using the same exact tool over and over again for different purposes, which means you will be able by yourself to come up with the new ideas for those same tools. So if others, or my player game object dot compare tag, if the tag of it was player, then what I want to happen is I want the false to be true, which means I want the object to fall. All right, and then in the update method we will say if false is true, then what I want to happen is I want the platform to fall. So transform.position equal vector 2.move toward. See, we're using the exact same tools again transform dot position, and we want it to go to the end dot position, and the speed we want it to be speed multiplied by time dot delta time. See, exactly the same code we used before for the moving platform. Nothing different. Just don't forget your semicolons. All right, and then let's go back to the game. And yeah, this is the falling platform. We're gonna drag the code to it, falling ground, and then we're gonna, actually let's do this. Let's create an empty object and call it falling ground, and then drag it to here to be centered, and then make the ground as a daughter to it, and then create an empty object and call it end, and then give it a tag, and then let's just drag, and we want it to fall down all the way to here. Okay, actually let's make it a little bit lower so it's scarier. Okay, and then the ground basically will fall to down there, so then I will drag my there, and I'll put the speed to 10 for now, and let's see how fast that is. Actually, let's do it 5, because I think 3. I think 10 is too fast. And then let's test it. So we're gonna go to gameplay, and we're gonna go to player. I'm just gonna drag him up here, so I'm saving myself time. As soon as you touch it, it's gonna start falling down on you. Maybe 3 is too slow. Maybe we need it faster. I'm gonna set it to 10 for now. You can control the speed. There is other ways that you can do it if you want to use the gravity of the game, which you can absolutely, and it will actually look nicer, but I just didn't use it. Okay, so that's that, and the final thing for this tutorial is when you win this level and you want to move to the next level, what do? You basically go to the end zone. So we will create an end zone. We will call it finish line, and then inside finish line, I'm going to make a door shape. You can make whatever shape you want. So I will pick a square, and my square will be stretched up just like that. And then my door is fancy, so I'm gonna also create a circle, and my circle is gonna go above my door, and I will zoom in just to make it perfect. I know if I made this to 1, no, I'm not hitting the exact center. Yeah, and then maybe 1.2, no. 1.02, no, 1.01. Perfect. And then I'm going to select them both and change their color to black, and that's my finish line. And then I'm going to drag my finish line and put it down here. So basically when you fall, you see the finish line. And then I will select, I'll select the box, and I will give it a box collider. And the circle, I'm going to give it a circle collider. So now you can interact with both of them. Alright, and what we're going to do next is just write a code that basically as soon as you touch this, it takes you to the next level up. And on Friday, we're going to work on the beautiful things and how to make the UI and finish the game. So let's create a new code and call it next level. Next. Okay. Where did it go? Well, I did not create a new code. Alright, let's create a new code and call it next level. And this one is also pretty simple. So now we need to use a new library that we haven't used before. This library is called Unity2D Manager. This one. So this is how it's spelled, Unity2D. So we don't need any of these, so we can delete them both. Again, if you're comfortable. If you're not, keep them. We need to add a public integer, and we're going to call it index. This means the level number, because in computer science, everything is assigned numbers, not names, because it's easy to track numbers than tracking names. And then we'll add a void, and we'll say on collision enter collision 2D other, and inside this void we will say if other dot game object dot compare tag equal player. See, we're using the exact same stuff over and over again. If that happens, I want to use the scene manager, and I want to load scene, and the scene number I want it to be indexed, so I can select whatever scene number I want, and then I want to load scene mode dot single. That means any other things that are loaded, I want you to turn them off, and that saves you memory. All right, so we have our scene manager there. All right, so now how can I create a new level? The easiest way is make a copy of your current level. So what I'm gonna do is I will go to my scene file in my asset, and I have, this is my current level. So I'm gonna Control D, I'll make a copy of it. This is the new one. I will right click and rename it and call it level 2, reload. And then this one, I'm gonna rename it and call it level 1. So how can I know the index of them? I go to file, and then I go to build setting, and as you can see, well, I actually named the wrong one first, but level 2 is there, and then I drag level 1. So just like that. So level 1 is 0, the index of it, because in computer science we start numbering from 0, and then level 2 index is 1. Just keep that in mind when you are working with this. This numbering will shift 1 digit when we create our main menu. So level 1 will be 1, level 2 will be 2, and we will get to that in next class. So for now, level 2 index is 1. So what I'm gonna do is I will go to my finish line, and I will go to the script, grab the finish line script. Where did we leave it? Next level. Put it in the finish. Actually, we need to put it in these, not over here. Remove. We actually need to be specific, so we need to put it in those two. Let's just put it on the square. We don't really need to put it on the circle. Let's even remove the collider from the circle. Let's just use the square. And then drag your finish to it. Next level. Oh, this is the extra one I made by accident. Okay. Square, and then just drag the finish line there, and then we want to go to level 2, which has the index of which has the index of 1. All right, so one mistake I made is this. Level 2, that's what I'm working on. I shouldn't be working on this. I should be working on level 1. So go to level 1, enter, make sure it says level 1, and then we will do it here. Script, and then next level, finish line, drag it, no, again, not in finish line, we want it on the square. Next level, drag it there, and then we will call it 1. So that means when I finish, I want to go to level 2. Then again, just remove the collider from the circle. All right, so let's make level 2 look a little bit different so we can tell the difference. So open level 2, and then let's make it different. So instead of this enemy being here, let's move it over here, and then this one, let's move it down. Let's do this. Let's move this whole thing down here, and then this one, let's just attach it, and then let's put this up here. Let's make it impossible to win. Alright, and then this one we're gonna put it behind you so it looks different. So save it, and let's go to level 1, and then let's play and see what happens. So I'm in level 1, shoot, and then jump. I get to my moving platform, okay, and then I get to my trampoline, I jump over, I fall down here, I go to the end, and now I'm on level 2. As you can see up here, it says level 2. And then if I want to keep walking on it, as you can see, it is level 2. Yeah, perfect. And then just make sure the death thingy goes all underneath all the gaps of the game. So like I'll probably put it maybe like a little bit lower, and then like extend it even farther that way. That's on level 1. So wherever you fall, you will always fall on it. And then maybe just put a wall or something up here so no one can actually go. So you can't go beyond this point back there. Yeah, and that's everything we need to learn today. I hope you'll have fun with this class and enjoy working on this.